The man who called me replaceable had no idea I owned the company he worked for. That thought's been echoing in my mind since the sun cracked over Manhattan. Quiet, precise, like a thread of wire hidden in silk. 11 years. That's how long I've walked the corridors of Nexora Systems. 11 years weathering chaos that should have drowned us. 4 department-wide layoffs, 2 mergers that collapsed mid-deal, and a pandemic that ripped through our profits like wildfire. Through it all, I stayed. Not for glory, not for gratitude, but because Nexora meant something. It still does. What no one knows, what I've told only my oldest friend, is that the night our ex-CEO pleaded for emergency capital, I didn't hesitate. I stepped in, not with bravado, but with every dollar my late aunt left me. Her bakery, her retirement fund, even her small beach house in Maine sold. In return, I secured control. 51%. All under Wexley Ventures, LLC. My name buried deep in legal filings. No title. No desk upgrade. Just a lifeline. Then came Bradley Voss. 38, Harvard pinstripes. Walked in like a press release. Nexora is stagnant, he declared. We need disruption. A hard reset. He was all buzzwords and bluster, spoken catchphrases. Acted like vision alone could balance a P&L sheet. I watched him like you'd watch someone juggling knives in a fireworks factory. Confident, loud, and dangerously clueless. He never asked about legacy systems. Never spoke to the teams. Just slashed departments like trimming fat off a beast he didn't raise. He called it optimization. This morning, he summoned me in. Said my role was redundant under the new structure. I nodded, calm, let him finish his monologue, and then we walked into the emergency board meeting. He didn't notice I didn't sit in the guest row. Not until the general counsel said, "We'll begin when Margot Maddox is ready." His eyes snapped to me, and for the first time since he arrived, Bradley Voss was silent. An email slid into my inbox like a whisper before a thunderclap. All staff town hall. Strategic direction update. I scanned the agenda twice. Bradley Voss, CEO at the top. Below his new lieutenants. None of them were mine. 11 years of loyalty, of firefighting, of rebuilding systems no one else understood. And just like that, I was erased from the agenda. The calm inside me wasn't peace. It was tension stretched thin like glass under strain. And when it finally shattered, someone was going to learn the difference between a title and true control. I heard him before I saw him. The echo of polished brogues on marble, each step like a warning shot. The double doors parted. Bradley Voss entered like the room had been built for his stride. Crisp charcoal suit, designer tie, hair perfectly rehearsed. He radiated manufactured charisma, the kind made for keynote stages and corporate sizzle reels. His smile was camera-ready. "Today, we begin the future," he said. His voice boomed through the mic in his own unchecked ego. The room of 100 employees fell still, not out of respect, but caution. Who's safe? Who's next? I stood in my usual post at the back near the pillars, arms crossed, face still. From here I could observe everything and remain invisible. Bradley never noticed. Men like him rarely look past the spotlight. He kicked off with buzzwords: agility, disruption, vertical synergy. The slides sparkled with animated graphs. Then his signature phrase, "Let me simplify this for you." Each time it left his lips, a colder spark ignited in my chest. Not fury, precision, simplify. As if decades of grit and quiet sacrifice could be reduced to a footnote beneath his strategy. As if history had an expiration date. The staff nodded along, eyes dim, pens, moving without meaning, but I watched the tells, tense shoulders, flickers of resentment. They sensed the quake coming, hoped they'd be spared. I left before the applause died out, slipped into the hallway. That's when I heard him. His voice drifted behind me, silky and cruel. "She's a relic," he told his assistant. "Like ordering a sandwich. Easy to phase out?" I froze. He didn't say my name, but he didn't have to. My gut knew. I kept walking, measured, controlled, refusing to let the spark behind my ribs ignite my stride. If Bradley Voss thought I was a relic, he'd never seen a hurricane kept politely in heels. The next morning, it landed. A company-wide email. Executive alignment, town hall follow-up. The attachment, a gleaming PDF labeled Nexora, restructured for growth. I opened it. Flowcharts, color-coded hierarchies, power-dressed as clarity. The org chart was a shrine to his ambition. Names I recognized, some loyal, some opportunistic. Others were strangers plucked from somewhere shinier. But then came the real tell, the void. My name, nowhere. 11 years. Dozens of projects salvaged. Millions redirected through systems I personally stabilized. Deleted with a slide. And a man who believed Excel macros were a personality. I stared at the document. Expression neutral. But something inside me wound tight like a live wire stretched too far. He wanted lean, he'd get it. He just didn't know who the scalpel belonged to. Minutes later, another ping. Conference room. D. Now. No greeting, no subject. Just 6 words that landed like a blade. I closed my laptop, buttoned my blazer, and rose. The hallway outside my office felt longer than usual, each step echoing off the polished stone, like I was walking into history or erasing someone else's. Conference room D's blinds were already drawn, blocking out the gray midtown morning. Inside, the light was sterile, unforgiving. Bradley sat at the head of the table, like a monarch preparing a clean execution, hands folded, folder closed, eyes calculating. "Have a seat," he said, not bothering to look up at first. I did. Quiet, prepared. Then he spoke. "I've been reviewing your department's metrics," he said, finally meeting my gaze. "Frankly, I'm not impressed." And just like that, the clock started ticking on his last day. He just didn't know it yet. Not speed. "Not impressed?" I repeated, voice smooth as linen. Bradley leaned back, letting his declaration hang like he'd just delivered prophecy. "You've plateaued, Maddox. The systems you built? Outdated, and your department lacks initiative. We're moving forward, but you—" His pause was deliberate, measured, designed to slice. "You're replaceable." The word struck like a cold stone dropped into my chest. Not pain, just weight. He expected that would crack me. He thought 9 years of grit could be undone by one dismissive syllable. Instead, I smiled. Just the faintest curl at the edge of my mouth. But it was enough to wrinkle his perfect brow. "You find this amusing?" he asked. His tone sharpened cracks in the confidence. "No," I said lightly, adjusting my cuff. "I find it funny you're being serious." Color crept up his collar. "If you think this is a joke, maybe you'd prefer to leave. We can formalize that today?" I leaned in, slow and deliberate. "Then fire me." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't flinch. I just handed him the decision like a loaded pen. The silence that followed stretched thin, tense, almost musical. For the first time since Bradley Voss strolled into Nexora Systems, he looked unsure. His mouth opened, then closed. No words. I stood without waiting for his blessing. Smoothed my blazer sleeve, turned and walked. He thought that meeting was checkmate. He didn't realize I was playing a longer game. When I returned to my office, the floor felt unusually still, like the entire building had overheard the tremor. Replaceable. It didn't echo like an insult. It rang like a bell, a signal. I closed my door. Let the latch click into place like a seal. Sat down. No pacing, no fury. Just a quiet decision. I picked up my phone and dialed. A number etched deeper than muscle memory. Evelyn Strauss, came the voice on the second ring. "It's me," I said, calm as ice. A pause. Then Evelyn asked, "What happened?" "He tried to dress it up as feedback," I replied, elbow on desk, watching the skyline fade into snow. "But let's call it what it was. A warning shot. He wants me out." Evelyn exhaled a sound like paper sliding across lacquered wood. "That doesn't surprise me," she said. "But this does." Her tone tightened like thread pulled taut. I reviewed the prep packet for Monday's strategic session. There's a proposal in it. I sat up straighter. Go on? Bradley wants to transition your position into an external advisory role. She let the words settle like dust on marble. In other words, she continued off the board. Off the chart. Gone. I turned to the window. The Manhattan skyline blinked against the morning haze, an empire flickering at the edges. He submitted that without a word to me. Of course he did, Evelyn said, blunt as ever. And here's the kicker. I waited. He flagged one line as pending shareholder approval. My lips twitched into a smile, sharp and slow. Pending, I echoed, almost savoring it. Yes, she said. He has no idea who he's waiting on. And just like that, a laugh escaped me. Quiet. Dangerous. Like the sound of a bolt sliding into place. I'm not telling him. Evelyn chuckled, low and pleased. Didn't think you would. I want him to walk into that room certain he's won. I said, voice cool enough to fog glass. I want him to feel solid ground under his feet right before it vanishes. Then, I'll keep this quiet, she said. Just be ready. Oh, I murmured, gaze, settling on my reflection in the glass. I've been ready. For weeks, I watched him erect his empire on guesswork, but assumptions rot faster than facts. I ended the call and leaned back. My fingers steepled, his posture mirrored. The boardroom was already humming when I entered. Glass walls catching fragments of whispered strategy. Sunlight sliced across the long table in disciplined lines. I slipped into my usual seat at the far end. Unassuming. Unimportant. That was the design. Bradley entered moments later, radiating success. Cufflinks gleaming, smile rehearsed. He gripped hands like ballots, claimed the head seat, and launched into his opening lines before anyone else had fully sat down. Good morning. Bradley began, his voice warm. Measured a performance years in the making. I'd like to walk you through a vision, he said, gesturing smoothly to the screen behind him. A leaner, more dynamic Nexora Systems. Slides advanced with crisp animation. Bold headings. Buzzwords stacked like scaffolding efficiency. Agility. Scalable growth. Each chart climbed, each metric framed as a miracle. He sold change like it came gift-wrapped, his voice rising with every graph. Then came the final slide. The one that changed the air in the room. Transition, he said too casually. Maddox. Sorry, Margot Maddox. To an external advisory position. Duties will be reallocated to more agile junior leadership. My name hung there. A full sentence. A verdict. A disappearance in slow motion. Around the table, a few board members shifted mild discomfort behind practiced neutrality. Then the chairman's voice sliced through. Before we move forward, shareholder consent is required for structural changes at that level. Do you have it? Bradley nodded without hesitation. Pending, but no issue. That was my cue. Actually, I said, voice calm, precise. There is an issue. Heads turned. Even Bradley's smile hiccuped mid-grin. I don't approve. He blinked, chuckled softly, like I'd just made a charming misstep. Margot, with all due respect, you don't have the... I reached into my folder and slid a document across the polished mahogany. You might want to check that. The chairman picked it up. Evelyn Strauss, 2 seats down, leaned forward. Verified and current, she said. Margot Maddox owns 51% of Nexora Systems, held under Wexley Ventures. The silence was so complete I could hear the projector's fan, whirring behind Bradley's head. He paled. I didn't know. I tilted my head. That's the problem, Bradley. You never asked. The chairman leaned back slowly, eyes scanning the paper like it might ignite, and in that moment, the air changed. Power shifted, without fanfare, without vote, just gravity realigning. Bradley Voss finally understood the empire he'd tried to reshape wasn't his to command. By the time I returned to my floor, the silence spoke louder than the meeting. People looked, then looked away. Conversations broke mid-sentence. In places like this, power doesn't move, it quakes. If you're still holding your breath like the rest of the boardroom, hit subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. The real reckoning is just beginning. People survive by not standing too close to the fault line. I kept my expression neutral as I settled at my desk, but inside the silence folded around me like cold glass. This wasn't celebration, it was isolation. For days, Bradley said nothing. No hallway confrontations, no slammed doors, just quiet retaliation, deliberate and exact. First, my team lost access to 2 proprietary dashboards tools we'd refined over years. IT shrugged when I flagged it. Streamlining, they said. The reinstatement ticket returned with a red tag executive directive. Then, my calendar shifted. A high-value client meeting I'd led every quarter for the past 3 years gone. The new invite listed a junior analyst from Bradley's circle. Better alignment, his assistant chirped when I inquired. I didn't challenge her. Not yet. This was Bradley's strategy now. Not to remove me, but to sand down my presence inch by inch. Death by subtraction. So I recorded it all. Screenshots, timestamps, meeting logs. No reaction, only documentation. Because silence to men like him reads as retreat. Late Thursday evening, long after most had left and the city outside had turned to shadow, a ping echoed across my monitor. No sender, just a gray message pane. Thank you. You don't know me, but you stopped him. I stared at it. Breath even. Pulse steady. Then another line appeared slower, as if typed through hesitation. He did this at his last company. 3 women left because of him. I read it twice. The letters flared like a match in a locked room. This wasn't ambition. It was predation dressed in performance metrics and designer cufflinks. I didn't reply, just captured the screen before it could vanish. Beyond my window, Manhattan shimmered like distant armor. Cold, unreachable. But I saw clearly now, Bradley wasn't finished. And neither was I. If he wanted a war in whispers, he'd chosen the wrong opponent. I'd fight him with proof, not panic. And when the reckoning came, it wouldn't be explosive. It would be precise. Forwarded from an address I didn't recognize. No subject, no message, just a single attachment, a screenshot. The header alone made my stomach contract. From Bradley Voss to board distribution subject leadership concerns. Each word beneath it sliced with surgical intent. Margot Maddox demonstrates signs of disengagement, has missed multiple strategy syncs, increasingly resistant to collaborative direction. Recommend reassessment of leadership viability. Not a single accusation shouted, but every line designed to erode. Clinical, precise. A slow deletion dressed as professionalism. Beneath the image, one soft line in gray from the anonymous sender. You didn't get this from me. I stared at it. A slow chill slid down my spine like a drip through a broken roof in winter. Bradley wasn't attacking me directly. He was rewriting my presence, erasing me one internal line item at a time. I sat back in my chair. The office around me, silent as a theater before the opening act. Then I opened a new document. Defense log. Phase 1 from here. Every move had to matter. I began gathering everything. Timestamps of meetings I was suddenly absent from. Emails. Canceled invites. Dashboard access logs. Copies of IT tickets stamped with executive override. All of it time-stamped, organized, labeled by date. Evidence doesn't blink, and it doesn't play favorites. Then I set my phone down face up, pressed record. I called IT for the 3rd time that week, my tone steady, measured. Can you clarify who authorized the removal of API access for my division? Their response didn't surprise me, but it was recorded all the same. When I hung up, I saved the file to my encrypted cloud. This wasn't paranoia. It was preparation. By Wednesday, the pressure had thickened into fog. Doors stayed closed when I walked past. Conversations wilted when I entered. Regular meetings vanished like ink in water. Then came the moment that turned quiet tension into something sharper. A junior analyst, someone I'd once mentored, slipped a folded note under my door. No signature, just 8 words in careful black ink. He's not just after your title, Margot. Check Bradley's calendar for Friday. Ethics prep. I logged into the shared portal, hands steady. but the air around me thrummed like something about to break. There it was. A private block titled Board Strategy, Leadership Realignment. Guests, Bradley Voss, 2 committee members. And a single line beneath that sealed the intent, finalize exit recommendation. Not a review, not a conversation, a judgment, disguised in corporate niceties. I closed the tab slowly. Let the stillness settle like frost across glass. He thought he was stalking me in silence. But he didn't realize I'd already mapped every step, every snare. And when he thought I'd fall, he'd be the one without ground beneath him. By Thursday, the decision was made. Not his. Mine. I stepped into the chairman's office with a black leather folder in hand. It felt heavier than it looked, like consequences tend to. Evelyn was already seated across from him, calm as ever. Strategic. Steady. A quiet force with perfect posture. The chairman looked up. His face gave away nothing. "Good morning," I said even and level. I placed the folder between us. "This won't take long." Inside wasn't speculation or suspicion. It was proof. I slid the first stack forward, screenshots of system access logs, time-stamped calendar wipes, revoked project permissions. Then came the email. Bradley's internal note accusing me of disengagement. I had highlighted every falsehood, annotated it, dated it, cross-referenced it. The chairman's brows began to draw in. His fingers laced together. And that's not all I said. Next came the audio files, quiet but unmistakable. I pressed play. "Yes, Miss Maddox. That restriction was placed by senior operations. Directive came from the executive level." The room was silent save for the speaker. The chairman's eyes shifted to Evelyn. She nodded, tone precise. "We reviewed chain of command protocols. Every action routes back to Mr. Voss's office. The game wasn't theory anymore. It was documented. And the board wasn't just listening now. They were watching. But I wasn't finished. From the folder's back pocket, I slid out a thinner stack, sleek, paper-sharp edges. Employee testimonies. Anonymous, but unnervingly detailed. Accounts of abrupt demotions, projects reassigned without reason, whispers of pressure to resign, language wrapped in corporate neutrality, but carrying the weight of coercion. Each one mirrored Bradley's pattern. What he'd tried on me scaled across others. When the final page touched down on the table, the room fell still. Only the steady hiss of the air vent filled the silence. The chairman exhaled slowly. "You've handled this with restraint. I'm not here to burn bridges," I said. My voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. Clear, precise, glass. I'm here to protect what I've built, and to make sure he doesn't do this again to anyone. The chairman leaned back, the shift of weight signaling decisions forming. "We'll convene a full ethics committee. Formal review. He'll present his case. So will you." "Good," I said, simply rising. But as I reached for the folder, I felt something else tucked into the lining. A small flash drive. Unlabeled. Light as a paperclip. "Evelyn?" I glanced across the room. She met my eyes and gave a single, almost imperceptible nod. Back in my office behind a locked door, I plugged it in. One audio file. Bradley's voice. Unfiltered. Smug. "She won't last Q1. I'll make sure of that." I played it again. The intent behind the words burned through the speakers, vindictive, calculated, and damning. This wasn't a strategy conflict. This was sabotage. I saved the file to my encrypted archive. Labeled it, Final Move. When the review began, Bradley would walk in thinking he held the weapon. He wouldn't know the blade was already turned angled toward him. The meeting room gleamed too brightly. Sunlight streaked across the polished oak. 12 chairs, 10 filled. The committee sat like stone, silent, watching. Bradley strode in smile airbrushed cufflinks, gleaming. "Thank you for your time." He began confident as ever. That practiced charisma smooth and polished. "I believe what we're facing here is simple operational misalignment. A clash of working styles. Nothing more." Bradley paused, letting his gaze drift across the table like a slow-moving spotlight. "Nexora needs agility," he said, his tone polished. My role is to ensure efficiency. He folded his hands deliberately, composed, calculated. Unfortunately, some individuals have interpreted necessary restructuring as personal attack. His eyes brushed past me like I was just another chair. Margot Maddox has been a valued contributor. He continued, his voice dropping an octave, attempting sincerity. But in the past month, she has distanced herself from core initiatives, resisted internal alignment, and fostered disruption. This isn't about misconduct. It's about momentum. When he finished, the pause was strategic. He leaned back, satisfied, sure of himself. I let the silence hold, let it tighten like a drawn bowstring. Then, evenly, if this is about facts, let's begin with the truth. I opened my folder, slid the first document across the gleaming table. A full timeline of every meeting Bradley claims I missed, each one either canceled or reassigned under his directive. Then another stack, screenshots of revoked access, emails, system logs, each action traceable. These aren't impressions, I said, my voice smooth and cold. They're documented. Then I reached for the flash drive. And this, I said, plugging it in, is Bradley. Recorded 2 weeks ago. His voice filled the room, sharp and certain. She won't last Q1. I'll make sure of that. A hush blanketed the table. Not one breath. Just the low hum of impact. I didn't look at him, not yet. Evelyn's voice cut through next. Precise. HR records confirm policy violations linked to those directives. This wasn't strategic. It was targeted. Then came the sound of something breaking, not in the room, but in Bradley. His composure cracked like ice under pressure. He lurched forward. This is a setup. You all let her trap me. I met his eyes then. Calm, measured. No, I said, soft enough to make him lean in. You did that the moment you underestimated me. The chairman stood. His voice carried finality. Thank you, Margot. The committee has heard enough. Effective immediately, Bradley Voss is suspended pending termination review. Security will escort you out. His expression froze, shock overtaking polish as 2 guards appeared at either side. For once, there were no smug rebuttals, no carefully curated charm. Just silence. And the echo of something breaking. Bradley didn't exit with press releases or curated goodbyes. No company-wide memo thanking him for his transformative leadership. No farewell toast in the atrium he used to treat like a stage. He simply disappeared. His name removed from the executive directory. His corner office dark. A presence erased without ceremony. And then quietly, something shifted. People breathed deeper. Meetings lost their tension. Conversations softened. Laughter returned to break rooms, like the first warmth after winter. No one spoke about it openly, but we all felt it. 2 days later, the board called me in. No cold summons. No tension coiled behind drawn blinds. Just the chairman standing as I entered, offering a sealed envelope. My name gleamed in gold script across the front. I opened it slowly. Appointment Executive Director of Strategic Operations. I didn't move at first. Titles had never interested me. Not really. They were distractions. Cosmetics over structure. I looked up. If I accept this, I said, my voice. Even it won't be business as usual. The chairman nodded. What do you need? 3 things, I replied. 1, an enforceable code of ethical leadership. Company-wide. Non-negotiable. He nodded. 2, every person Bradley sidelined gets a seat at the table. Department rebuilds resource allocation, all of it. Done, he said. And 3? I paused, letting the weight settle. We don't cover this up. We don't bury what happened to protect pride. We learn from it. We build transparency into the foundation. He met my eyes. Agreed. The next morning, my office felt lighter, not grander, just real. No invisible tension curling around the chair. No second-guessing every knock at the door. Outside on the glass wall where his name once gleamed, I placed a new placard. Simple, unadorned, mine, Margot Maddox. We build forward together. Integrity is not optional. Simple words etched onto the edge of my new glass door. But in them lived a manifesto. I stood still for a long moment, fingertips grazing the cool surface, letting it ground me, letting it remind me of the nights I stayed when others slipped out quietly, of the day I signed over every cent of my inheritance to save a company that didn't even know I existed, of the meetings where I was spoken over, where silence was mistaken for submission. But power was never about the loudest voice in the room. It wasn't about titles or theatrics, not about steamrolling conversations or hiding behind glossy strategy decks. It was about patience, about restraint, about knowing exactly when to listen and exactly when to strike with precision, so clean it didn't need volume. Because in the end, the echo always outlasts the noise. I turned back to my desk. Outside Manhattan shimmered beneath the golden brush of morning light. For the first time in too long, the air felt clear. Not just lighter, but filled with possibility. Because storms don't always arrive with thunder. Sometimes they build quietly, coil beneath the surface. And when they finally break, they rewrite the entire landscape. Power isn't in theatrics. It's in quiet momentum, impossible to stop once it begins. Looking back on everything, one truth crystallizes. Silence isn't weakness. It's strategy. The most powerful move you'll ever make is often the one they never see coming. For weeks, I let him believe he'd won, that I'd stepped aside. Meanwhile, I built my case piece by deliberate piece. Because real power isn't about dominating rooms. It's about clarity, integrity, and never letting someone else write your ending. So if you're fighting your own quiet war right now in a boardroom at home or in your own mind, remember this. You don't need to shout. You don't need to match their chaos. Stand your ground. Document everything. Protect your truth. Because one day your quiet strength will rise. And when it does, it won't whisper. It will resound. If my story struck something in you, if you've ever been overlooked, silenced, or underestimated, leave a comment. Tell me where you found your voice. I didn't fight this battle for applause. I fought it because integrity deserves defenders. If you believe that quiet strength can shake empires, stand with me. Speak up for yourself, for others. Your words matter. Here's what I've learned. You don't have to be loud to be powerful. Document everything. Stay steady. Know who you are when others try to rewrite you. Because someday, that quiet clarity won't just protect you, it will lead you forward.